Good evening or afternoon. This was originally going to be a live virtual workshop, but I lost someone. I'm not seeing people. And so, what makes the most sense, I think, is to record and either share the link for this or upload it on Zoom. Each is equally okay for me. This is one of the first times I haven't offered this up into my psychotherapy networking group. So there weren't any of my wonderful colleagues attending, which is a lot less nerve-wracking for me. And this particular workshop I'm giving, or it's now turning into just simply a talk, is all about the difference between empathy and echoism, or being an empath and an echoist. And before I move through what those definitions mean, I did take some time earlier to pull a tarot card, and I'll share that here. It's the Two of Wands. And this is a pretty powerful card. We have an androgynous figure sitting beside the water on the beach, blindfolded, balancing two swords under a crescent moon. I guess that would be a waning moon as well. And to me, this card really speaks to mindfulness, stillness. Swords are all about your words and the meaning of your words, but this also makes me think of meditation, equanimity, the ability to balance things. And in the context of what I'm about to talk about, I think this is about knowing when you need to find that balance between the natural gift of empathy and the more maladaptive aspect of echoism. So as I talk more and as I keep glancing at the card, more may come through on what this means, but I definitely think it refers to stopping and being mindful and taking care and things coming into balance. The origin story of Narcissus, I just said that wrong. Narcissus, the Greek myth, is ancient and filled with powerful symbolism. It has many different versions. I'm sure it's been lost in translation over time, but Narcissus was a deer hunter who'd been told he was destined for greater things and to be among the gods, although he was mortal. I regret not paying more attention in philosophy in university. However, I digress. And Echo, a nymph, so not human, not mortal, but cursed for telling the truth about something. And she lost her voice, only able to repeat what she was hearing. And she fell in love with Narcissus, who was only in love with himself, which happened when he saw his reflection in a pool of water. Now, I'm not sure this is a literal story, as many myths don't tend to be. But again, there is rich symbolism about what it means to fall in love with someone while under a curse and to not be able to use your own voice. Which leads us to the concept of echoism. And you don't hear this a lot, there's not a lot written about it. it makes sense in the context of the myth and the story. Oh, sun's peeking out through the storm clouds that are moving away. Um, but if we think of, as we should, narcissism along a spectrum, hang on, I'm going to fix the shade. Sorry about that. Um, we have the concept of echoism on one end, the left end, if you can visualize that, and on the far end, on the right hand side, is extreme narcissism. So echoism on the one end and narcissistic personality disorder moving toward sociopathy and psychopathy on the other end. The reason why this is set up this way is because whether it is, benign neglect in parenting or abusive parenting or cultural influences or whatever we want to hypothesize causes unhealthy narcissism, but in the middle of all of this is healthy narcissism. So in the middle of that continuum or that Likert scale is, a healthy sense of self, right? A healthy check and balance on the operations of ego. So at both ends, both echoism and narcissism, we have a lack of differentiation from ego and self. So those are the two things that one might have in common. I became interested in this concept of echoism when I was meeting a number of people in the office, and no, they weren't just women. The interesting part of that is they weren't just women who saw themselves as empaths. But as I sat with them, what was revealed were traits of low self-esteem, quite significant codependence, what I refer to as codependent control. So if you've read my book, there's a segment in the book about that. It could be its own book. But these were people who genuinely believed that if they just changed, it would fix their relationship. They genuinely believed that they were the broken ones. And I need to be more specific because these were people who for the most part were in fairly toxic relationships, so in narcissistic relationships. So, and in the rare occasion, if you get a narcissist and their partner in the room, this dynamic becomes very apparent, where one person is, the center of things and everything revolves around them, even the children, it all revolves around them. But then you have a partner who has lost their sense of self, who believes they are the problem because they've been told that, and who carry the burden of fixing everything. And more significantly, they believe they're responsible for how that person feels, or anyone for that matter. So you would have an increased risk, of course, of being an echoist. I think that that's also in boom, bust, and echo. So just I'm using it in a slightly different context here. But for those who carry that echo archetype with them, you very likely were not safe if you were the center of attention. You very likely were disciplined in some way if you asked for something or if you were even successful in some way. You may have experienced intermittent reinforcement around validating that narcissist versus being able to express your own opinion, have your own voice in things. So essentially, yep, I'm taking my socks off. Essentially, Echoism is a more symbolic, perhaps romantic term for what we would currently be referring to as um, codependent, but it goes way deeper than that because it's about the development of the psyche, the development of an independent sense of self and voice that happens across the trajectory of childhood. You could make an argument that some personality disorders are forms of echoism, borderline, and OCPD being ones that come to mind. Now, I would also say that covert narcissism tips into um, this concept of echoism. And now to talk a little bit about what it means to be an empath. Empaths, in my opinion, learned to read the room when they were very young. And what I mean by that is they became hyper vigilant at an early age, potentially even pre-verbally. They learned to be able to read the emotions of other people. I mean, obviously they're caregivers in the beginning, but through the trajectory of their lifetime, they learned how to do this. So I know that people think that this is, heightened intuition, a different level of consciousness, that it's a gift, that it's part of, the evolution of humankind. And I hope all of that is true. That's just simply not what I see. And as an empath, I don't think that's my experience, other than that as a child, I had to be able to read the emotions of people, and B, for whatever reason, was guided by something other than what is in this dimension throughout most of my childhood. So that isn't even part of being an empath. That is what I would refer to as clair or audiovoyance, right? There it is again, right? When we can't see, we are able to receive different messages. Um, so empaths also take on or can experience energy differently than other people. And they are there, it's almost like there's a porousness between themselves and other people. There's a permeability, right? So, and they can also sense things like body language, tone of voice. Empaths can walk into a room and sense what someone else is feeling, or sense if someone is off or not safe in the room. There are a number of people out there who call themselves empaths who are deeply wounded individuals. I do think that what we commonly characterize as borderline personality disorder is really a dark empath. Believe me, folks with BPD, they can sense things. They sense it. I think it goes through a filter and it gets misperceived, but they sense things for sure. I want to come back and talk about energy a little bit. Because empaths don't have to be in conversation with someone. They can just be in someone's company and have their energy drained, right? They can pick up on animal suffering. I think they're more sensitive to shifts in their environment. Many empaths have other environmental sensitivities. And I also think that their pituitary systems are perhaps set up a little bit different than for other people. And there's all kinds of reasons for that, lots of nature and nurture arguments, but the hypothalamic pituitary axis for people who are highly empathic leaves them more vulnerable to have their pituitary and endocrine systems not work correctly and to create a myriad of autoimmune related health issues, not to mention depression and anxiety, which is how I got started in this in the first place, right? Was assessing depression and anxiety and chronic illness over and over and over again. So this is, where was I going with all of this? So that is part of the energetic aspect of being an empath. So people who've done heart-mind congruence talks with me will have heard that it is in fact the vagus nerve that connects into the heart center where we take in information, right? So this is how energetically we become quite attuned to people. Interestingly enough, a number of people I have met who are natural empaths also have low iron, low B12. Their source minerals are drained. And so people who know me well know that I go through distinct periods of time where my energy is influenced and my iron drops very low and my B12 drops very low, and it's not much I can do about it. It just goes through these natural cycles if I'm not taking really good care of myself and my energy. So I created, and this is also a handout. So for the people who didn't come to the workshop, they're not going to get the handout. But I created a quiz for discerning if you are an empath or an echoist. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach it to the talk. I'll put it up in YouTube. So if people get the recording, I'll just attach the handout. And I won't go into that in the talk. These two ideas, being an empath and being an echoist, are not mutually exclusive. You can be both. The salient difference is you need to take care of each of them a little bit differently. I'm not saying you couldn't do both things, but taking care of yourself as an empath is about mindfulness, meditation, self-compassion, taking care of your energy, having energetic boundaries, visualization, self-inquiry and discernment, knowing when something is yours or not yours, learning how to balance your energy. So if you're going to be around people who are draining, what are you going to do to take care of yourself later on? I'm an extrovert. I love being around people, but even if there's one person who is really toxic, I have to take care of my energy in that situation. Learned that the hard way. In terms of echoism, that's more schema work. It could be cognitive behavioral therapy work, understanding the roots of your self-esteem, good old boundary work, right? The all of that beautiful, like Melody Beattie type of work on codependence, looking at your attachment blueprint, right? What are those patterns that you keep repeating in your relationship? Learning that people's feelings belong to them and that you're not responsible for them. Learning that not everything is your fault, for example, right? People who are echoists have a lot of internalized blame. So hopefully this idea makes sense that we have echoism on the spectrum of narcissism, with healthy narcissism in the middle, and empathy, or being an empath, being the heightened energetic response to being around someone who tends to drain energy. So, as I said, I will put the quizzes, figure out somehow how to attach them in the notes. And failing that, if you want to chat about this, just reach out to me. I am currently accepting patients into both the psychotherapy practice and what is now a boutique narcissistic recovery program that's being offered in individual intensives rather than in a group format. So just a small change in what I'm offering. So please feel free to DM me if you have any questions about that. And thank you so much for listening. I wish you either a lovely evening or a very good day.